We thank you all for joining us this evening. Miss Tamara, would you like to start at this moment?
I will be happy to.
I know we have so many new features, several new features that have been added. And
yes. And is my screen showing properly? Do you see Perfect Embroidery Pro? I'll take that as a no.
I think that is a no.
I do.
Okay, all right. Okay, let's minimize that. And I do have up my screen here on Perfect Embroidery Pro.
There we go.
There you go. And for those of you who have downloaded the update, you will know then that you are on version 8.14. This was sent out last Monday, or a week ago, not yesterday, but the week before, on the 6th. And we will be doing software updates every Monday, the first Monday of the month. So the first webinar of the month for that software, we'll go over the updates so you can see what they are. First of all,
Ms. Tamara, could I just interrupt you? Does that mean we're going to provide updates to all of our software every single month?
Yes, ma'am. That is exactly what that means. Yes, and we'll have new software or new updates each month. So with a list of what the updates are so you can see how they work, and we'll show you how to use them in action on the webinar. The first one that I want to show you today is a new search feature. Anytime that we have a catalog like our text designs, which has numerous designs in it, our monogram designs, the motif shapes, and the applique shapes, you can now search through that. There's a search feature. So I can type in, let me find everything that has the word star in it, and click the down arrow, and here's a falling star. Again, there's a regular star. Let's see if there's another one. Oh, there is a starfish, and I think that's it. I could also search up if I decide I want to do a heart instead of a star. I can click the up arrow and find a heart. And that's the only one that's in there. Let's go ahead and select that by clicking OK. And that brings in a design for us that is an applique. Well, I want to show you a couple of other features. So we're just going to use this shape. And let's center it in the screen. And the first thing I'm going to do is convert this to a complex fill. Because once I get it into a complex fill, then I can change my fill types. If I come over here, let me get rid of this little menu here. There it is. I come over here to my properties box and click on the motif fill. Then I can select any one of these motifs, and we have some familiar ones. We have some that are a little bit newer down here that you got with your software, and we can audition motifs. I can change the pattern length by just entering in the number of millimeters I want it to be here and click apply. So now we have some circles in here. That's kind of cute. If we look at it in 3D, we can see, or a realistic view, what it would look like. I want to go ahead and add a border to the outline of this because I don't like having those gaps. It bothers me. So I just select my heart, and then I create a border. And that puts a run stitch border around there for me. Now, one of the new features, and this is so fun, is the 3D effect. If I have a design like this one that has a motif fill, it will allow me in my properties fill over here on the right-hand side to select 3D effect and click apply. Now, isn't that cool? It looks just like 3D. Let's try out some other motifs and see what they look like. We could put hearts in there and click apply. And so you see that it gives it some dimension. It makes it look curved. If I take off the 3D effect, it's just flat. If I put on the 3D effect, then it makes the hearts in the center larger and the ones around the edge smaller, so it makes it stand out off of that screen.
That's beautiful, Tamara. You can say that.
So I can also change my pattern length and click Apply. If I want it to be a little bit different, I can also play with my angles. Over here, if I click Shape, it will let me play with the angle of those hearts. If I want them rotated, I can do that, and it will still give me that 3D effect. I'm not as crazy about that. We can change it back. So that's one of the things that we can do. Oops, let's go back the other way. Select it, and let's go back to the way it was. Undo. Thank you very much. There we go. Okay. Now, another feature that you may not have noticed that was added to the software. Let's say I'm going to take this heart and first of all, let's change it to red since it is a heart. If you want to get a head start on Valentine's Day. And maybe I want to stitch this out on felt and cut it out for some little favors. So I can take my heart and I could go up into my repeat tool and select to repeat it in the hoop. Let's do 2 across and 2 down and make them, a ½ inch apart. Click Apply and OK. Now I have 4 hearts on my screen. I'm going to stitch those out, but I also want to cut them. So I can select them and create an outline, which puts an artwork outline whatever distance away from what the design elements I've selected. Let's do it 1/10 of an inch and click OK. Now I have this blue artwork outline. If I select that and right click and convert it to a run stitch, okay, now it's a run stitch, then I come over to my properties box and I can select for that to be cut work instead of a run stitch. Now I apply that. And you see that kind of goes crazy with the jump stitches if I take it off of 3D. That's because it's using all 4 of the cut work needles and it cuts certain parts at a time. If you do a slow redraw, you can see the cutting sequence. But with the cut work needles, then, it will go and cut out precisely around each one of those hearts. So I don't have to do it and worry about slipping with my scissors and not getting an exact perfect cut. Isn't that fun? Don't you think that's fun, Nancy?
I think that's amazing, actually.
Okay.
You should sew those lovely hearts on some beautiful garment for me.
Okay, well think about that. Now let's open up a new page. Another thing that we're doing with the motif fills, and let me just, or the motifs, and I'm just going to do a little run stitch here, and I'm going to make my lines a little curvy and out, and I just have this run. Now I can convert a run also to a motif stitch, and let's select which motif stitch we would like to use. And again, you can go in and out and audition this as much as you want. I do like this one, it's really pretty, and let's apply it. Let's look at it in a realistic mode. And that's nice. It almost kind of looks like a bicycle chain. But we can make this look very different by coming back in here and selecting a variable size. We want the size of the motif to change. If I select linear increasing, and let's make our minimum and maximum pretty distinct here. So 25% minimum, let's do 250 maximum, and apply. it grows. So it starts out just 25% of its size and it grows to 250% of its size. If I do linear decreasing and apply, it goes the other way. I can also do convex, so it gets smaller in the center and larger at the ends, or concave, and click apply. Now that to me looks like a necklace that's been thrown down on the dresser after, I don't know, an evening of dancing or day of working or something like that. Pretty fun, huh? Lots of different things that we can do with this application. Even if you have a motif around an applique for your finish stitch, you can add this variable size element to it and make it very interesting and distinctive. How do you like that one, Nancy?
That's beautiful.
Well, good. So let's
And I would love for you to embroider that with a pearl kind of thread around a lace type garment for me as well. For all of you that I keep saying that because I do have DNS on the end of my title. So anyway, I'm always excited. I'm the newbie here going, wow. I'm going to buy an embroidery machine and start sewing.
You let me know when you do that, okay? All right. I'm going to pull in one of our designs here from October. This is one of the free designs. Nice little pumpkin here. Now, I'm excited about this. I used to have to go through a lot of gyrations to make this happen. We've had part of the feature in the software for quite some time. I want to look at this in 3D view. This is a cute pumpkin, little shading. It's a small design that's only about 1 3/4 by a little over 2 inches. And I want to print that out or save it as a picture. Now, I don't have to be in 3D view to do it. I can just come up here to File. In the upper left-hand corner, click File and Save as Image. Now, we've had this feature for quite some time. We've had it, but only as a JPEG. Now, I can save it as a PNG file. And when I do that, a couple of really amazing things happen. One, and let me type the name on here, pumpkin, and click Save. It gives me the size. I can include artworks in it if I want, which I couldn't do with the JPEG. I can also set the resolution. Here are my height and width in pixels. I can make it have a transparent background. So if you want to audition a design on a piece of clothing or show somebody what it's going to look like, if you're in a business, this is awesome because I can take now this design that was saved, and let's bring it up and I'll show you. It saves it right here. It's in 3D. Let's move our other pumpkin out of the way here. Okay, so here's the picture. It saves it in 3D, and the background of this is transparent. So I could audition that on a picture of a shirt and so show somebody exactly how it would look. I really like having that invisible background where it's transparent, so you can really get the look and audition it on different fabrics. I could even bring fabrics up in the background and see what that looks like on denim or chambray or corduroy or whatever I want to audition it on. So it's a very fun feature. That's another new one. Now, another one that we have is the ability, some enhanced zoom capabilities. If I hold down my control key, let me do a select here. Okay, now if I hold down my control key and roll my mouse, it will pull me into that design exactly where my cursor is. If I want to do it up here, whoops, here, let me just put my mouse there, hold down my control key, you see the plus sign appears next to my cursor, and just scroll in. So much easier than moving the screen around and adjusting and all of that. Some great time-saving features that have been put in. Another one that we have, oh, let's go back to this design back here. Okay, so here are my hearts, and this is cut work, but it looks like stitches. And the stitches are really short. Okay, they're 0.5 millimeters. It's half a millimeter long for my cut work. I can take and add notes to this. If I'm going to send this to Nancy when she gets her new embroidery machine, I want to tell her, we're all laughing, right here in my note, which there's text over here I can enter, the blue line, whoops, if I can type, line is a cut work line, not to be stitched. And I could even make that italics if I want to and apply it. Now, I can put this anywhere in the design. It's not going to stitch out. It's not going to, but it can print when I go to print a template if I want to. But it will stay with that design. Have you ever had those designs, well, I know you haven't, Nancy, but Dory may have, where you always want to remember something special about it, or you want to give instructions to someone else? This is great for doing that, because I can put as many of these notes in as I want, and I can add different things, whatever I want to with it, and it will save that with the file. I can even change the font if I want to, and this uses all the fonts that I have in my computer. So all
and Tamara, in all of this, you know, you're just right now talking about the new additions that we just added to the software.
Right.
So anybody that owned the prior software now has these new techniques, right?
Exactly. Yes, yes. They're built in and it's free of charge. Absolutely. We keep updating it with new ideas, and I know some of these came directly from Eileen. I know how she works, and, you know, adding the notes in here, definitely an Eileen idea. And those will actually be in all three of our platforms.
In all three of our platforms are my Perfect Embroidery Pro, my decorative quilt,
my quilt embellisher,
and my block piecer.
Yes, exactly. So it will be in all three of those platforms. So on your quilt blocks, you can put notes to yourself on there. You know, change the density, or be sure this is where you put, you know, put the stabilizer and backing under after color number 3. So lots of things you can do, and it's all up to you. You could even say, I hate the way this design's stitched out. I don't ever want to stitch it again. If you wanted to, you wouldn't when you bring it up. So those are some of the new things that we've added to the software. Let's get into our topic for tonight, which includes placement marks and splitting designs. The first thing I want to show you is splitting designs. Let's open up a new screen. And I'm going to pull a design in here from my collections. Let's see. Let me refresh this. I just added some things. Refresh. For those of you who haven't played with the library lately, you're going to see there's lots of new features with the library that really simplify what you're doing. I'm going to go into Lulu's Christmas. Now, I can do this with any designs out there. They do not have to be C2S designs. These were actually digitized, I think. Well, I'm not sure what they were digitized in, but they're not native C2S, which is fine. I can still split them. I'm going to rotate this to the right a little bit because I want to look at it right side up, and center it in the middle of my screen. Okay, this design is 6.41 by 5.02 inches. So if I want to put this into a, I can't stitch it out in any of my existing hoops. Let's say I want to put it in a 4x4. I can come up here to my split design. I just use my control key. Here, I can show you where it is. I hover over that. That's the split design. Click on it. And then it brings it up in a dialog box. And the first thing I'm going to do is select a hoop. I can select, let's put it in my Baby Lock Brother 100 by 100 hoop. Now, if you'll notice, there's red lines going across and up and down. Each of these red lines has a number in it. Right here, this is 1, 1, this is 2, 1, and 3, 1. There's 1, 2, 2, 2, and 3, 2. Okay, this is my first row and this is my second row. The red lines indicate the overlap in the design. In between the gaps in these, that's where the design overlap occurs. Let me show you what I mean. If I go to the preview, it'll show me in that first hooping, all I'm stitching is a little bit of her scarf, but it runs over into this overlap section here, just a little bit. That way we don't have a sharp line like slicing through the design where it was obvious that you put it together right there. In 2-1, then it comes down a little bit to match up with the design portion below it and stitches everything in 2-1 and part of the bird. Then in 3-1 we get the outline on the bird and part of the hat, and so on and so forth. Now all of this in between these red lines is the gap in here, or the overlap. Down here I can get out of my preview and I can change the amount of overlap. If I just want that to be 0.25 inches, I can do that and click split 25 inches, and I want it on that hoop. And now I'm going to, well, let's do that when we bring it up. Okay, so I'm going to make this 0.25, and I don't need to rotate it. Add alignment and do my preview. No, it doesn't want me to do 0.25. Let's try 0.75. There we go. Now, I've made it smaller so that the overlap is smaller. Sometimes that affects how many hoopings I do. For example, let's change this to a 5x7 hoop, or a little bit larger hoop. Yeah, let's do 5x7. There's one. Now here I have it in 2 hoopings. There's a 1.18 inch overlap. I can change that to 0.5, and the overlap is much smaller. It's not going to change the number of hoops I have in this situation, but it could in others. So if I do my preview now, here's my first design, and here's my second one. So I just have 2 hoopings for this design. Let's see what that looks like when we save our design. I'm going to click from the preview. I'm going to click Save and call it Snowball. No, Snow Scene. How about that? If I can spell. And click Save. And I can save it in the format I want for my machine. Now, it puts it all together in a folder for me called Snow Scene. Here's my first design, and you notice there's marks here. There's a mark for the edge of my hoop and for the line where it's going to stitch, where you're going to match it up. Then the second one, this is where you match up that line, and here's the other edge of my hoop. If I click on the PDF preview, it will show me the overall design is called Snow Scene. I'm using the Baby Lock Brother 130 by 180 hoop. I have 2 rows or 2 columns and 1 row. So there's my whole design. Then here is the first design. It says column 1, row 1, and it shows me right here where that fits on that design. So I scroll down, and it gives me my color chart. So I don't have to go print out another template or anything else. It gives me everything I need right here, my instructions on what color to stitch where, and so forth. Then on the next part, it's part 2, Snow Scene 0221. It's column 2, row 1. There's 13 colors in it, and it tells me how many stitches, and there you go. Now there's my color analysis, and it gives me all that information. And now I can close that. I can do that with any design. One of the advantages of being able to split your designs, software lets you be, software kind of gives you more capabilities than what your machine might have. If your machine has a limitation on hoop size, don't let that be a limitation with the embroidery you can do. Here's another design. Let's rotate that one as well. I don't have to rotate it. I just don't like to look at it sideways because it's so cute. And let's make this one bigger. I can change the size of it up here in my properties box. We'll make it 8 inches wide. And it'll adjust the height accordingly and apply. So now here's my design. And again, I can come in and select any size hoop. I will click on my split design feature, and it brings up my 130 by 180 hoop. Now in this case, let's see if we decrease the overlap. If it does change it. Now it's just 4 hoopings instead of the original 6. So if I do 1.18 again, bless you. It gives me 6 hoopings. So you can adjust those things as easily as you want. If you don't want the alignment in there, you don't have to have it. Then when you go to see it, here's your first hooping. It's just a little bitty bit there. If I save it, you'll see that it doesn't add that. Let's do Christmas tree and save it in the format I want for my machine. Click Save. Now here are my designs. There's Christmas tree 1, Christmas tree 2, and you'll notice it just puts my hoop marks in there. It doesn't add that line going through it that I would need to remove. It just puts the hoop marks. Then here's the 3rd one, and the 4th one, and the 5th one, and your instructions. It's 3 rows by 2, or 3 columns by 2 rows. There's the finished picture. And here's your map of how you're going to stitch it out, going across these rows, or this row and then the 2nd row. There's your first design.
So easy, Tamara. It's almost like paint by number, but it's stitch by number.
It is stitch by number. Exactly. So it breaks it up for you into manageable segments that you can stitch with the hoops that you have. And I can pull any design I have or want into this and play with it that way. Even quilting designs, or if I've got huge hoops and I want to do split up an even bigger design into multiple hoopings. And that's how easy it is. We've saved that. Let me open up, oops. Let's open up that design and see what it looks like. I'm going to come over here. We'll refresh our picture, and I'm going to come up to Christmas tree. Let's bring up a new page. And that first one's so small, let's pull in the 2nd design so you can see how it stitches out. So here's my stitching. The first thing that stitches, if we do a slow redraw, is the design. Oops. Let me let it go itself. There we go. So, just like that. And it stitches all the way through that section. And you can see how...
Then stitch by stitch.
Uh-huh. And you can see down here at the bottom how that's kind of rough there. But when the next design comes in, and I'll tell you what, I'll show you how that works by doing a file merge. And we're going to go back to that Christmas tree. And let's see if I can pick the one right underneath it. That would be it. I'm going to open that. It brings it in. And you see how well that merges right up together. You don't even know where the split is.
That's amazing.
So, Nancy, do we have any questions yet?
We do have some questions, and
okay.
1 second, I actually have to flip my little screen to show me what the questions are. And the first question is, does the color analysis also indicate what color the thread is for each element in the design? An example, the color yellow, starlights present, present.
Right. Yes, it does. When we look at that, let me see if I can, well, we'll just bring up the PDF. When it prints out, let's just get it again. Let's click preview, then save. And click save. In your PDF, it will show you the colors for each design section. So part 2, which is your second column on your first row, it will show you all of the different colors that you need, and this is the order in which they stitch. Okay, this is a very colorful design. Lots of color changes in that one. Now, one thing that if you missed it on our last webinar, that we can do to change colors, that's a new feature with the software, is I can come over here down at the bottom in the right-hand corner and change my palette. I just click Change Palette. This was all done in Madeira Rayon. Okay, these are all the different colors I need. There's 21 different colors in this design. I can change my brand just by coming in, and I'll click Isocord. Let's make it Isocord colors. And there you go. I've got all of my different colors. It gives them to me in the sequence. And now it will print out with those colors instead of the others. So that easy to change palettes.
Thank you for bringing that forward. Another question, and it was very simply, is what are cutwork needles?
Cutwork needles, there's a couple of different kinds, and depending on your machine, they are either a set of 4 individual needles, which is the way some machines do it, or I know Bernina has an attachment that's a needle attachment where instead of changing each needle, you just dial to the different angles that...
It is machine specific. There's different methods.
It is, yes.
Brother, Baby Lock, Bernina.
Exactly.
Cloth Viking, it doesn't matter. There's a method.
Right.
But the needle itself could work on its own as a cutwork needle, right?
Right. And the way that, here, let's go back to that design and I'll show you how that stitches out. When we stitch it, and let's get through the heart part quick. Okay. When it stitches, let me take it off of 3D because you want to see the jumps here. What happens, let's speed it up a little bit, is that, see how it's going through and just doing part of it. Each needle, when it's selected or loaded, stitches, if you will. There's no thread involved. It stitches. It's got a wedge on the end of it. So it's like punching a wedge down in there to cut that fabric. So it stitches at one of 4 angles and goes around that design in sections to cut it loose from, cut that fabric loose from the rest of the fabric. So as it stitches around, then it will change needles as you go through the design based on the angle in which it is cutting or stitching. So it'll do all of one and then another and another until it's finished. And the nice thing about the way it does that is then it doesn't fall out when you get to the end of, you know, it doesn't do it consecutively around the heart. It will stitch parts of it so it doesn't fall out till the very end. It's really fun, it's really easy, and it just adds a whole new dimension to what we can do with our embroidery machines.
We'll have another question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Does the color analysis also indicate what color the thread is for each element in the design? So for an example, the color yellow, starlights, whatever, you know, we demonstrate actually how to go through that process.
Yes, it will stitch out, I mean, it'll print out. Now this is just a regular design, and depending on your settings in your template, if you have it stitch out, all of the stuff, even your hoop. But down here at the bottom on this one is the color analysis. It says the first color, red, cardinal, this is the code, and the number, Madeira rayon, and even the amount of thread you need in inches. Now, of course, we don't expect anybody to go measure their thread, but you're going to know by looking. Here, let's pull up one that's got more colors. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's go to print preview here. Like with this one, I can do this a couple of ways. Let's take it off in one page. And depending on the parameters and how they're set will depend on how it prints. I like this printout myself because it shows me exactly where something is printing. This is perpetual teal, which is color number 1304 in Madeira rayon. I need about 40 inches of that, and it's 644 stitches. So I know if I've got just a little bit left on that spool, if I've got a little over a yard of thread, I'm okay to stitch that. Or 31 inches or 9 inches. It's not going to take much thread. Whereas, you know, this one I need 176 inches or 250 inches. And it's the color name with a symbol of the color and the name. Now, when we do that change, the palette change, if you have your thread set up in your own palette, if you have your own thread chart set up with the threads that you own, you can have it switch to that palette and see what colors you have that'll work in there, which could be a combination of different brands and all of that. I'm not that organized, so I don't have that set up on my computer. So, okay.
Okay, so I have another question for you. Can you also add your own registration marks for continuous embroidery?
We haven't gotten into that. I'm getting ready to jump into that right now. That's a great segue, Nancy. Thank you. So let's get out of this template and open up a new design. Now, placement marks, we had a couple of them in that, in the continuous or the splitting of designs, but we also, placement marks come in handy for different things. For example, if I'm doing continuous embroidery and I have in here some, I got to remember where I put them. Oh, the Inspiration Collections, my lace borders, and I'm going to select one of these borders, such as this one, and pull it into my screen. And it's a very pretty border, and I want to do this continuously along the edge of something, or on maybe on a sheet hem or something. Maybe not standalone. I just want to make it continuous. I can select my design and come up here and select my placement marks. Now, placement marks can go in any of these 8 different locations. At the ends, with these 4, I can even add the centers of the middle, like right here, and the end centers. So let's select them all first and click OK. Now, my computer is very smart, or my program is, because it does those first. It moves those to the first thing that's stitched. And normally I don't add placement marks until I'm finished figuring out exactly what I'm going to do with the design. The advantage with this is it's going to stitch those out and then stitch my lace. Then I can re-hoop, and I'm just going to show you virtually on the computer. I can copy this and paste it, and the next time I stitch it, the first thing that's going to stitch out are those placement marks. So I can line them up perfectly where the other ones go, and I'm ready to stitch my designs, just like that. So if you have a camera feature, or if you have, it doesn't matter what great features you have on your machine, and by all means use what you have. But if you don't have any, then you can do this very simply by just clicking your placement marks and adding them to any design you want to. So what I might do in this case is on my second design, or any subsequent designs, I'm going to get rid of those 2 because I don't need them. And I can stitch the end ones. Let's select those. And I'm going to move them. We'll come up here. I want to move them to the back so that they stitch at, move them to the front. So they stitch at the end of the design. I always have to play with that one and remember which way it goes. Okay, so now they're going to stitch the very last thing. So it stitches these. I take this out of the hoop. I come in and I stitch the first ones, lay them down, and then I know exactly where to line up my next hoop. And if you use a PAL with that, the Perfect Alignment Tool, oh my gosh, it's so simple. And that would be on continuous embroidery. Now, another time that these come in handy, let me open up a new page. I've got a backdrop in here of a shirt that I took a picture of. It's just a denim shirt. And the scale is 100%, so it's exactly the right size that I want it to be, which is important. Then I can set up, let's say we're going to put a monogram on the pocket of this shirt. So I click my monogram tool up here in the top left-hand corner, come down and, oops, I need to select it, and come down and enter a monogram. Let's do J-E-A and apply. Okay. Did you have a question, Nancy? Nancy? Oh, you were talking. Okay. So now I can just resize it however I want it to fit nicely on this pocket. Make it a little big. You know, monograms are all the rage, it seems like. Everybody wants to, everybody to know who they are. Okay. So now, I could play with a template on there and mark the center of it, But if I take and add placement marks to this, I'm going to come in and click on my placement marks, and I want them in the 4 corners, and click OK. Now, it goes in the 4 corners around my design, but that's not where I want them. I can move these placement marks. I'm going to move them up here so it goes on each of the corners of this pocket, and then I'm going to line it up with the bottom corner down here. Let's see, that's the edge and the edge there, or I could just put it like right there on that corner. And actually, I probably wouldn't even need these down there as long as I have the ones up at the top. Now, when I go to stitch this design out, see, it puts my placement marks in the very beginning. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch my placement marks on stabilizer and then line up my shirt corners with the placement marks on the stabilizer, and I can either pin my shirt to the hoop stabilizer or put a little spray on there, or use adhesive stabilizer and stick it down, and I am going to get perfect placement on that design without having to play with where that goes and how it's hooped. So it's just another way to get perfect placement.
Thank you, Tamara. I have one more question for you as we're nearing the end of our webinar this evening.
Okay.
And it really goes back to the split design aspect. And it says, and I'm going to have to ask you specifically, when you split a design into segments, does it automatically add placement stitch marks on the design in the hoop so that when you rehoop, you can then line up the consecutive segments? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And let's go back to that. Let's just do it again and let me show you, because you've got that option. Let's pull in a design from our library. Let's see, we'll pull this in. I love this Lulu stuff. She's so cute. Okay, let's pull the tree back in again. And I'm going to resize it. Well, no, this is about 5 by 5. So I'm just going to split it and see how it would do that. Fits perfectly in a 5 by 7, but if I only have a 4 by 4, then I'm going to split it up. It put my overlap at 0.98, which it determined would be the best place for it to overlap, but I can modify that if I want to. And I've got it checked to add alignment marks. So let's see what happens. Let's split it and save it, and we'll call this one Tree 3, and click Save. Now let's open, tell you what, let's open up a new page here. Close this, new page, and I'll show you exactly, Tree 3, let's pull in this design right here. Okay. Now, it does put these placement lines on here for me, so I know exactly where to line that up. On the next design, let's just merge that one in. Merge. And we'll go to Tree 3 Designs. Oh, I better put it in here. Oh, there it is. Okay, let's pull up the second design and click Open. Now, here is the second one, and I'm going to line it up. You see how I can line up these lines exactly? And that will stitch out perfectly. Let me show you in the sequence view where that is. These are manual. let's move it up so we can see it better in the screen. And ungroup it. Okay, now when I select this, these are manual stitches in here. See, this is a manual stitch. This one's a manual stitch. So that it allows me to line that up, and it stitches first. Just a moment. Okay, sorry. And it stitches those first. So I can line them up and then stitch my design. So if we look at that in a redraw, you'll see exactly how it goes through and then stitches that line. So you know exactly where to hoop it. Oops, and goes through. And then it stitches the next line. So you know where to line up the next hoop. Now we also have in our option here, if I have a hoop assigned to this, I can select, let's do 4x4. And it moved everything, but that's okay. Let's get rid of our backdrop here so I can show you how this works. And get rid of my hoop marks, my alignment marks. Now I can make this have alignment marks, and instead of around the design, I can add them to the hoop. So I can pick all of them if I want, and based on the hoop size that I have selected, it will print them it will stitch them for the hoop. So lots of different ways to place it and get things aligned properly without having to jump through hoops, if you'll pardon the pun. Does that answer the question, Nancy?
It does. I'm sure it does. And you know what, Tamara, this has been just a great webinar and a wealth of information. And I just want to announce to everybody we're at the close of our webinar. And to let everybody know to visit us on our website at Inspired by Dawn. Everybody can register. It's free of charge. For all of our webinars, we are at 1,000 max, and we were close this evening as well. So please register early, and these are 12 months spread out that we will teach you how to embroider with our tools in every aspect that we can. And so Tamara and I will be joining you quite often over the next calendar year, and we thank you so much for your time this evening. And Dory, you and your support team, we just couldn't, for everybody that knows, Tamara and I just show up, and Dory and her team really do everything else. And
yes, thanks to Chris and Nancy, and especially Dory. And we will be back. When's our next webinar, Nancy?
I think it's next week.
Well, because this one was making up for the one we weren't able to do.
Dory, I will leave this to you to conclude, and thank you so much for all of you guys. We appreciate you. This concludes this evening's session. Thank you so much.
Good night.